reportedly kicking and screaming as the kidnapper grabbed her and threw her into his car.
Neighbors are shocked.
It's a small community. Everybody knows each other. Everybody trusts each other.
I'm absolutely shocked. I mean, personally, I never expected anything like this to happen in the community like this.
Stanton, California. Stanton is a small community in Orange County, located roughly 26 miles southeast of downtown Los Angeles. One of Stanton's residents was a little girl called Samantha Runnion. Samantha's mom, Erin, worked as an analyst for British Petroleum in Long Beach, California. She had chosen to move to the Smoke Tree condominium complex in Stanton because it was a safe, family-friendly place. The neighborhood was close-knit, the kind of place where, as one resident explained, the garage doors are open and the people socialise. We use that as the patio. The complex was always a hub of activity. With loads of children in the area, they were always out and about having fun in the central courtyard, and Samantha was often one of those out playing. When her mom came home from work, she would hide and then jump out to surprise her, her mom always reminding her that she was not to leave the courtyard. Erin said Samantha was kind, loving, everything a child should be. She was happy. July 15, 2002, 6:30 p.m. 5-year-old Samantha and her friend 6-year-old Sarah were playing outside. Samantha was being watched by her grandmother, while her mother and her mother's boyfriend were at work. She and Sarah were sat happily playing a board game. As they played, a green car drove past them. It drove round the block, and then back again. A man got out and asked the girls if they had seen a puppy. He was looking for his missing chihuahua. Samantha asked how big it was, when, without warning, the man grabbed her and dragged her to the car. Samantha kicked and screamed, desperately fighting to get away. She shouted to her best friend, "Go get my grandma," as she was pulled into the vehicle. The door was slammed shut, and the driver sped off. In an instant, life for so many would never be the same.
Lured into a car by a stranger. One of the latest on the kidnapping in a live report. The child was reportedly kicking and screaming as the kidnapper grabbed her and threw her into his car. Right now, an intensive search is underway.
Samantha and another little girl were playing here on a small street in the Smoke Tree Townhomes complex. Around 6:30 this evening, a man drove up to the girls and asked them to help him find his puppy. When Samantha bent over to ask him about the size of the dog, he grabbed her and drove off. Samantha's grandmother was just around the corner, didn't see anything. Neighbors are shocked.
It's a small community. Everybody knows each other. Everybody trusts each other. I don't know what kind of sick person would do this. I mean, come up in here? What's wrong with them?
I'm absolutely shocked. I mean, personally, I never expected anything like this to happen in the community like this. Everybody around here, basically watches out for each other, and when something like this happens, it's depressing and shocking at the same time.
Samantha Runnion had been born on July 26, 1996, to her father Derek and mother Erin. Erin and Derek would later separate, and Derek moved to Sunderland, Massachusetts. But he remained very close to Samantha. "I loved her so much," he said, talking about the letters and packages he had sent to her, as well as all the times she had visited him. Samantha loved sunflowers, superheroes, princess costumes, and the Disney movie Hercules. Hercules was her favourite hero, and she kept a poster of him above her bed. She was an intelligent, advanced student who had just completed first grade, and now a massive search was underway to try and find her. From the moment Samantha was kidnapped, the investigation carried a sense of desperate urgency, not only because she had been abducted in broad daylight, with her grandmother just inside the apartment and her friend standing beside her, but because every passing second mattered. A description of her was issued. She was wearing a white blouse, red checkered shorts, and pink sandals printed with green frogs.
"Please ask your captor to let you go. We love you. She is my cielito linda. Please let her go."
Search teams and volunteers continued the massive manhunt that was already underway. Parents were suddenly terrified. This was a place they had always felt was safe. It was a small, friendly city, But now, everything felt much darker and heavier. Despite being only 6 years old and having just witnessed something unimaginably terrifying, Samantha's friend showed remarkable courage and clarity. Through her shock, she was able to give investigators a detailed description of both the man who took Samantha and the pale green car he was driving. She described him as having slicked back black hair and a black mustache. Her account helped artists create a composite sketch that was quickly released to the public. And within hours, law enforcement officers were stopping hundreds of vehicles that even vaguely resembled the car she had seen. Her ability to remember what she did played an extraordinary role in pushing the investigation forward. It became one of the earliest and most important clues in the hunt for Samantha's kidnapper. Tips poured in from across the region, and before long the story had captured national attention. The fact that she had been taken in broad daylight shook the community to its core, leaving many parents questioning how safe their streets really were. People were holding out hope and praying with everything they had, but just 24 hours after she was abducted, that hope would be shattered. A 911 call came in from a hang glider who had spotted something in a wooded area, the remote area near Lake Elsinore, close to the intersection of the Killen Truck Trail and the Ortega Highway, roughly 50 miles away from Samantha's home. The caller was audibly traumatized, at times too shaken to speak clearly. "Oh my God, we found a dead body. Please hurry, I'm so scared. It's a little kid, it's a baby," the caller said. "I think it might be the little girl from the news." "I'm sorry," he said, adding that he had a 3-year-old of his own. "Please hurry, I'm scared and I want to get out of here." As his panic began to rise, the operator pleaded with him to stay as calm as he could. Investigators were on their way and would be there as quickly as possible, and despite the frantic searches, their worst fears were now realised. It was the body of Samantha Runnion. She had been sexually assaulted and suffered at least 2 blows to the head, causing her brain to swell. It was the opinion of the pathologist that she had died as a result of mechanical asphyxiation, through a compression of the neck, and with the blunt force trauma to the head contributing significantly to it also. The pathologist could not determine what exactly had caused the compression to the neck, though. Her body had also been posed in a graphic, sexually suggestive manner, a detail that they said indicated the involvement of a sexual predator. FBI agent Richard Garcia later said that the way her body had been left suggested a disturbing message from the killer. The fact that it wasn't buried or hidden, the way it was left, almost like a calling card, a challenge. "I'm here, and I'm coming back again." That's why we believed this person would strike again. It was estimated that she had died roughly between 8 p.m. on July the 15th and 2 a.m. on July the 16th. Samantha was just 1 week away from her 6th birthday, and Erin had already chosen most of her presents: a set of Lincoln logs, a dinosaur puzzle, and a new dress for one of her Barbie dolls. The remains were identified officially by Samantha's grandmother through photographs. Sheriff's officials noted that because the body had been found so quickly, they had high expectations for significant forensic evidence, both from the scene itself and Samantha's body, evidence they hoped would lead them straight to her killer. More than 500 FBI agents were now assisting in the case, and an investigation that had gone from a hunt for a kidnapper to a killer was officially underway. When it came time to face the media, Orange County Sheriff Michael Corona took an unusual approach. He spoke directly to Samantha's murderer. Looking into the cameras, he issued a warning.
"Don't sleep, don't eat, because we're coming after you. We will take every resource that's available to us to bring you to justice."
But while his words were aimed at the suspect, it was the local residents who found themselves unable to sleep. Fear had overtaken this community. Garage doors that were always open now stayed firmly shut. A community that had always felt so connected suddenly became a series of properties behind locked gates. More than 2,000 tips had come in, but the police needed the break that would ease people's fears, and it would come, thanks to Samantha's friend who had witnessed her abduction. That sketch of the man she said stole her friend was everywhere, and soon they would be able to put a name to that face. A woman named Tammy recognised the person in the sketch and contacted the police, suggesting that the man they were looking for might be a man named Alejandro Avila. The 27-year-old was 6 foot, 200 pounds, and bore a striking resemblance to the drawing. Bringing an intense 4-day manhunt to an end, Orange County Sheriff's deputies arrested him. They took him into custody after conducting a search of his Lake Elsinore apartment and questioning him for nearly 12 hours on suspicion of kidnap and murder. At the time, he was living with his sister Elvira in an apartment on Riverside Drive in Lake Elsinore. His mother Adelina and his other sister Adelita lived in the same complex. This was only 10 miles away from where her body had been found. On the day Samantha was abducted, Alejandro was supposed to prepare dinner for his family, with the meal planned for between 6 and 6:30 p.m, but instead of staying home, he spent the afternoon and evening driving across Southern California. Bank and transaction records later showed that he withdrew cash from a Bank of America ATM in Lake Elsinore at 5:18 p.m. Over the next several hours, he stopped twice at different gas stations before eventually checking into a Comfort Inn shortly before 9 p.m. To verify his route, investigators retraced his movements exactly 1 week later, starting at the same minute he made his ATM withdrawal. Along the way, they stopped at key points connected to the case: the Smoke Tree condominium complex where Samantha was kidnapped from, the location where her body was found, and both service stations he had visited that night. When investigators retraced his route, they calculated the total distance from the Bank of America branch to the Comfort Inn, including all of the key stops, to be about 202 miles. The direct driving time would have been roughly 3 hours and 24 minutes, or 3 hours and 40 minutes when factoring in each stop. The journey was consistent with being at the Smoke Tree condominium complex around the time Samantha was kidnapped, and later the remote site where her body was found, before finally checking into the hotel. During the test drive, investigators reached the complex at 6:17 p.m, made the same immediate stops, and arrived at the Comfort Inn at 8:57, a timeline consistent with the events of July the 15th. Alejandro's sister later said that he was familiar with the area where her body was found. She even recalled visiting that same location with him once to watch a meteor shower. The day after Samantha was abducted, Alejandro had told his sister that he had spent the day before at the beach. During their conversation, she noticed a fresh scratch on the inside of his knee. He explained that he had caught it on the leg of a baby gate at home, but the baby gate, she noted, was made of smooth plastic and had no sharp edges that could have caused such an injury.
Authorities say they've collected substantial physical evidence, including DNA, linking Avila to the crime.
His 1994 Ford Thunderbird matched parts of the description given by Samantha's friend, and investigators noted that the vehicle tyres were consistent with the tracks found near the site where Samantha's body was discovered. DNA consistent with Samantha's profile, so rare that it would have been expected in fewer than one person in a trillion, was discovered inside his car. Additionally, DNA matching Alejandro's genetic profile was found in scrapings taken from beneath Samantha's fingernails, with a probability of occurring in roughly one person out of 600 million, evidence strongly suggesting a physical struggle between the two of them. Alongside the tyre tracks, there were also shoe prints and a single footprint near Samantha's body. None of the shoes recovered from his apartment under a search warrant matched those impressions. However, surveillance footage from one of the gas stations he had visited that evening showed him wearing what appeared to be a pair of athletic shoes. Records from the local shoe store confirmed that in September 2001, he had purchased this pair of shoes in a size 12. Although investigators later found the shoebox during the search of his apartment, the shoes themselves were missing. What had made officers even more concerned was that he had previously been on trial and later acquitted over the alleged sexual abuse of 2 young girls. His mother maintained that the allegations were fabricated by a former girlfriend seeking revenge. She believed that her son's arrest in Samantha's case stemmed from lingering suspicion surrounding the earlier case, rather than new evidence. She said she didn't believe her son was capable of committing such a crime. "I don't think my son did anything," she said. She described him as someone who was gentle with children and said he had been especially cautious after his previous trial, never allowing himself to be alone with kids. "He's never aggressive," she said. "He's very good with little kids." She also remembered seeing scratches on his legs, marks that investigators noted were consistent with the struggle Samantha was believed to have put up, but she insisted they were from the children's safety gate. She said that her son had been unfairly targeted and provided him with an alibi, saying he was shopping at a local mall. He too denied any involvement, saying the same thing as his mum. He had been shopping when Samantha was kidnapped. His mother also recalled a conversation she had had with her son before his arrest. They were watching television coverage on Samantha's disappearance. I said they should get that person and tie him up alive and burn him. Her son responded, "What about the electric chair?" "No, because he's not going to suffer that much." Sheriff Corona stated publicly that law enforcement had no doubt they had arrested the right person. He struggled to contain his emotions as he described the case as being one that had affected him personally. "I told you we would hunt you down. If you thought for 1 minute we were kidding, tonight you know we were deadly serious." Following his arrest, more people came to gather outside of Samantha's apartment complex, leaving behind flowers, teddy bears, cards and personal tributes from a growing makeshift memorial. An estimated 250 people stood hand in hand, praying, grieving and comforting each other. Samantha's mom, Erin, was visibly moved by the outpouring of support. Speaking through tears, she urged the crowd to look after one another, asking parents to not only protect their own children, but to look out for all children. Samantha's father echoed Erin's statement. "Please watch your children," Derek said through tears. "Keep an eye on them, don't let them out of your sight. I will think of her when I wake up every day. I will think of her when I go to bed. I will think of her all day long. I love you dearly. I miss you, Samantha." One thing that detectives were trying to determine was whether or not Alejandro had prior familiarity with the apartment complex. According to the Associated Press, a man named Luis, the foster brother of Alejandro's former girlfriend, told reporters that Alejandro had visited the complex before. Luis stated that Alejandro had gone there to see his former partner's 11-year-old daughter. The child's mother said that she feared him and that he may have previously visited the complex with the intention of taking her daughter. "I think he went there to get my baby, but instead he took this little girl," she said. Alejandro Avila was charged with murder, kidnapping and 2 counts of forcible lewd acts on a child. Prosecutors could pursue the death penalty, citing special circumstances attached to the charges. The Orange County District Attorney said, "I do want to make one thing very clear. Anyone who commits an act like this in Orange County will either die in prison of natural causes or be executed." It was now time for them to say goodbye to Samantha. The cathedral was packed to capacity, drawing people of every age and background who had travelled to pay their respects. "Nothing can bring our baby back," said Erin, choking back tears. But knowing that her death was handled with the utmost integrity and her life was cherished by so many does bring some solace. "We are overwhelmed by the love people have shown Samantha. We always knew she had a gift for the world, but it never occurred to us that her greatness would be realised in her death." The trial of Alejandro Avila would be an extremely difficult and traumatic experience for many, but the prosecution's case was extremely strong. They stated that phone and financial records placed him in the immediate area at the time of the abduction. DNA matching his profile was also found underneath her fingernails. In his opening statement, the defense attorney Philip Zalewski argued that the DNA evidence linking him to the crime was unreliable. He claimed that the samples taken from beneath Samantha's fingernails had been improperly collected, and pointed to what he described as inconsistencies in witness statements that ultimately led investigators to focus on his client. In speaking to reporters, the Assistant District Attorney David Brent dismissed the allegation that the investigators had planted any evidence, calling the claim outlandish. Judge William Froberg also allowed testimony from the 2 girls involved in Alejandro's 2001 case, where he had been charged with sexual abuse but then acquitted. A 3rd young girl who also said she was abused was permitted to testify as well. One of these girls was the daughter of his former girlfriend. She said that when she was around 7, he would sometimes watch her while her mother worked nights. He would abuse her while he was supposed to be caring for her. This happened on several occasions over the course of a year, and she said she also witnessed him abuse her cousin. As we know, he was charged and tried, but as there was no physical evidence, it was their word against his. His sister testified that after his acquittal, they were watching the film Double Jeopardy, and he allegedly told her, "I could do anything I want to that little girl, and I can't be charged for it because of Double Jeopardy." His former girlfriend said that when they were together, he showed little interest in intimacy, and sometimes asked her to dress in what was referred to as junior-style clothing. Another man also testified that Alejandro had once been his roommate, and upon him moving out, child sexual abuse imagery was found in his bedroom. The third girl to accuse him said that when she was 11 she had been abused by him, and she said that he told her if she said anything, someone could be killed. Prosecutors said they believed Samantha was murdered in an attempt to prevent him from ever facing similar accusations again. After obtaining a search warrant, a computer had been seized from his sister Adelita's apartment. She testified that she had never accessed inappropriate material on it. Her mother didn't know how to use the internet, and Alejandro did have access to it. An investigator who specialised in computer-related offences analysed the computer. He described numerous images of children in a wide variety of sexually abusive acts. These had been deleted, but he was able to recover them. At 4:43 a.m. on July 14, 2002, the day before Samantha was kidnapped, somebody had used that computer to print from a multi-page story involving an adult male abusing young children. The investigator was also able to uncover a record of a chat room conversation from someone using that computer under the name Girl Lover and a person in Finland. Both of them said they liked girls under 12. The person in Finland asked what it was like living in California. Girl Lover said, "I live 4,000 feet in the mountains, where you can do anything to little kids." After nearly 9 hours of deliberation over 2 days, an Orange County Superior Court jury, made up of 8 men and 4 women, returned with a unanimous verdict. The jury found 30-year-old Alejandro Avila guilty of Samantha's kidnapping, sexual assault, and murder. As the court clerk read the verdicts aloud, Erin gasped and broke down in tears. Across the jury box, 2 jurors also wept, one of them rocking slightly. At the defence table, Alejandro sat hunched between his attorneys, staring downward, showing no visible emotion. His public defender could be seen with tears in her eyes. The court announced that the jury would reconvene the following Wednesday to determine his sentence, whether he would face the death penalty or life in prison without the possibility of parole.
The fact of the matter is that one's down, but my baby's still gone. And there are still going to be children victimized if we don't do something to stop it. So I have to beg you all to help me make sure that we can stop these crimes against our children.
Standing beside Erin after the verdict was Sheriff Michael Corona. He really struggled to hold back his emotion as he thanked Erin for her grace and strength, thanking her for not holding it against us, for not bringing your daughter home alive, and for believing in us and becoming part of our family. The ex-girlfriend whose daughter had accused him of sexual abuse said justice can finally be served not only for my daughter and my niece, but for Samantha. She said it was her belief that he was looking for her daughter that day, as she used to live in the complex, only a few doors away from the Runnions. In my opinion, he was going there to look for my daughter. I believe he was obsessed with her. She said of the case involving her daughter, I told the jurors they made a mistake, and it's only a matter of time before he does it again. Erin said on Larry King Live that she blamed every juror who let him go, every juror who sat on that trial and believed this man over those little girls. Reflecting on that earlier case, Superior Court Judge Robert B. Spitzer told the Los Angeles Times that there had been very little evidence beyond the children's statements about what had happened, but the prosecutor from that trial, Paul Dickerson, said the acquittal had still weighed heavily on him. I felt the guy was guilty and did everything I could to get him convicted. But with a conviction now secured in Samantha's case, the trial would move into the next critical stage, sentencing. Beginning the following Wednesday, jurors would be tasked with deciding his fate. Would he be sentenced to death or life in prison? Erin was given the chance to address her daughter's murderer in court. Samantha fought. I know she fought. I know she looked at you with those amazing brown eyes, and you still wanted to kill her. I don't understand it. I never will. His defence team asked the jury to reject the death penalty, arguing that the crime was not premeditated but impulsive, shaped by a deeply traumatic upbringing. Alejandro's life was marked by instability and violence. In 1989, his father was arrested for child abuse, and the children were removed from the home. His father, Rafael, would also be convicted of fatally shooting a neighbour when Alejandro was just 17, and he later pleaded guilty to manslaughter. Years later, his brother Juan was found dead in Mexico with a gunshot wound to the back of his neck. In court, his team said he came from a family which had been impoverished, sexually, physically and psychologically abusive, and dysfunctional for generations. But the jury would ultimately reject this argument, and they recommended a death sentence. The judge agreed. For the temporary gratification of his lust, the defendant destroyed an entire family's future. He has forfeited his right to live. 9 out of the 12 jurors would return to the courtroom to hear the sentencing be passed down. For many members of the jury, the hardest moments of the trial had came when they were shown photographs documenting the injuries Samantha had suffered. Jury foreman Terry Dancy said those images were almost unbearable to look at. They were graphic and they were absolutely heartbreaking, he said. If anyone in Orange County had ever deserved the death penalty, then this man did. Just imagine that little girl up on that hill. She just knew she'd be saved, but no one came. In the wake of Samantha's murder, the then Governor Gray Davis ordered a statewide expansion of the child abduction alerts, ensuring that emergency messages would appear on electronic billboards along California's freeways. According to Sheriff Michael Corona, the initiative proved to be highly effective. All 47 Amber Alerts issued under that expanded system had resulted in children being safely returned home. Alejandro would attempt to overturn his conviction by appealing to California's Supreme Court, arguing that the intense media coverage had made a fair trial impossible, and that the judge had made multiple legal mistakes, including refusing to move the trial to another county. The California Supreme Court upheld his sentence. In their ruling, the justices stated that the trial had not been biased and that the evidence presented in court overwhelmingly supported both the conviction and the sentence.
If I could motivate all of those people who cried for Samantha, who cared for her, who were outraged, to show all of that energy to the children that we could still protect, then we could prevent these crimes from ever happening again. And that is what we are trying to do.
More than 100 children have been saved since California's launch of the Amber Alert system, including Tamara Brooks, who learned the history behind the statewide abduction alert for the first time today.
What a massive sacrifice that was taken, which saved my life. And it broke my heart. It broke my heart that it takes horrible moments like this for good to come out.
Erin Runnion said she hoped her daughter's legacy would help teach children to be brave if they were ever approached by a stranger and know exactly what to do to get away and get to safety. In the years that followed, she transformed her grief into advocacy. In her daughter's name, she founded the Joyful Child Foundation. The organisation works on initiatives such as community child safety networks, research into preventing repeat offences by convicted abusers, and a range of other programmes focused on child protection and abuse prevention. If you would like to know more about the incredible work of the Joyful Child Foundation, we have left a link to it in the description box. Erin said that she would never forgive what he did to her daughter, saying that the only person whose forgiveness should be sought was Samantha's. She said that her way of forgiving him was recognising what his upbringing had been like. She had sat and listened to what had happened to him as a child, stories of Alejandro and his siblings being tied up and beaten. It's no excuse for what he did at all, she said, but it is a fact that he was a victim of horrible crimes himself as a child. We need to prevent crimes against all children. I tell his story for a lot of reasons. People tend to think about child murderers as monsters, but we need to understand what creates these monsters is this cycle of violence. One person that Erin also connected with was Jayanne Sepich, the mother of Katie Sepich, whose case we covered a few weeks ago. Jayanne and her husband Dave had worked to push Katie's law, named after their daughter, at a federal level. This was a measure that provided funding for states to collect DNA samples from anyone arrested for a violent felony. Previously, DNA testing was required only after a person had been convicted. Erin said that she was very moved to hear that Jayanne had been inspired by her victims' advocacy work. Samantha Runnion was only 5 years old, but she left behind a light bright enough to change lives far beyond the small courtyard where she had spent her days playing. She was clever, imaginative, and full of the kind of courage that only children seem to possess. And as we remember Samantha and the legacy built in her name, it's also important not to forget the little girl that was with her that day. Despite the trauma she endured and the fear she must have felt, her bravery at such a young age played a crucial role in setting the investigation in motion. Her quick thinking and ability to recall vital details undoubtedly helped guide detectives towards the truth.
Erin went to Sacramento, Washington, and anywhere else she needed to go to get laws changed.
Part of the reason I think I have managed to continue this work for 20 years is because I know that most parents can't. And as long as I can, I try to be a voice for Samantha and for every child who needs one.
Just about any child protection legislation you can name, from keeping predators away from kids to sexual exploitation on the internet. Erin and her foundation have had a hand in getting them passed.
I like to think that it wasn't for nothing. That a lot of children have been protected because of her.
Erin Runnion has refused to let Samantha's story end with tragedy. She changed that grief and anger into purpose. Through the Joyful Child Foundation, she has built something extraordinary, a nationwide movement. Because of this work, thousands of children have taken safety classes that teach them how to recognise danger and how to trust their instincts, as well as self-defence. Communities have been trained, law enforcement has partnered with volunteers. Every lesson taught, every child reached, and every life protected is now part of Samantha's legacy. Her story continues in the strength her mother found, and in every child who is safer today because of Samantha.